Lots of pretty great racing, a couple of controversial finishes. The Melon Man Challenge is underway, and everybody say it with me, the Biff is back. All today on the fifth turn. Alright, everybody, welcome into the fifth turn for this week. As you saw in the intro, we've got a logo now. That's exciting. I'm very pleased with how that turned out. So leave some comments down below about what you think. And I'm also thinking about, depending on how big this gets, if we get a big enough following, I might start doing some merchandise, some hats, some T-shirts with the logo on it. So let me know down in the comments if that would be something that you guys would be interested in, and what kind of hat, what other merchandise you'd like to see, anything like that, because that's something I'm possibly looking at doing if this starts to get a big enough following. Yeah, a lot of great racing this weekend between Texas, Colorado, Michigan, everywhere where there was NASCAR racing this weekend. It was pretty good for the most part. A lot of great racing, a lot of controversial finishes, lot of action to recap on the show this week. Let's start with the truck race at Texas. I love the truck series. I just want to say that I love the truck series. What a race that was! Incredible racing. You saw just so much action. So much excitement, so many different leaders and cautions. I think they broke a Truck Series Texas record for cautions with everything that was going on. But the big story, there were two big stories in the Truck Series coming into the weekend. Number one was the return of Greg Biffle, who had not been in a truck since, I think, 2004, and had not done any kind of NASCAR racing since Miami in 2016. He hasn't stopped racing. He's been doing a lot of off-road trucks and stuff like that, but it's been a while since he'd been in NASCAR. And he tested the 51 truck for Kyle Busch during one of the practice sessions the last time we were at Texas, and had some pretty good speed. And then the plan was for him to run this Texas race in that 51 truck. And I got to say, it was like he never left. It really was. He got in that truck and he was running really well. Top 5, top 10 all night long. So yeah, that was very cool to watch his return. The other big story coming into the Texas race was the Melon Man Challenge, as it has been named. Ross Chastain decided to switch to Truck Series points to try to have a shot at the Truck Series championship this year. He has to be wishing that he would have made the move sooner, because if he would have made the move sooner, he won at Kansas a couple of weeks ago. So he'd be locked into the playoffs with a win. He'd also be second in the point standings right now, with the fact that he's run top 10 every race. So he's got to be wishing that he would have switched sooner. But I think it's the right move. Obviously he would have loved to have stayed in the Xfinity Series and do his obligations with Johnny Davis and all that, where he's had some good runs before, and he's got that car in the playoffs a couple of times before. But my philosophy is, look, go where you can win. And out of the technically four cars that he's driving, Premium Motorsports in the Cup Series, JD Motorsports and Colleague Racing in Xfinity, and Nice in the trucks, that 45/38 truck is capable of winning every week, and he's shown that, because again, he's finished top 10 every single race this year, which is pretty impressive. We were not talking about that team at all last year. They were mid-pack at best, and Ross Chastain got in that truck this year and has has really made them a superstar team overnight, which is really, really cool to see. And so, yeah, go where you can win. He decided to switch to Truck Series points, have a shot at the Gander Outdoors Truck Series Championship. The criteria for him to get into the playoffs, he's got to make the top 20 in points to be eligible for the playoffs if he were to win. And then once he gets there, he's going to be so far behind, he basically has to win in order to get into the playoffs. I think both are doable, especially considering it's Ross Chastain. The former is definite in that one race, because when you switch mid-season, you start out with nothing. So he came into this weekend at Texas in the Truck Series, 0 points, 59th in the standings. He walked out of that race 38 points, 35th in the standings. So I mean, he only has 15 spots left to jump in the point standings, and there's a lot of guys ahead of him in the points who aren't even running every race. So he's definitely going to hit the top 20, especially if he continues this streak of top 10s. He's definitely going to get there. The big question is, can he win again and lock himself into the playoffs? That's why they're calling it the Melon Man Challenge. Let's see if he can do it, and if he can, what a story that would be. What if he won the championship? I mean, it would be not quite, but it would almost be a Kyle Busch 2015 comeback. To come back from that much of a deficit and possibly win the championship, that's going to be incredible if he can do it. He's going to have a lot of guys that he's got to go beat. Obviously, it helps not having Kyle Busch in the series anymore. Because there were a lot of races the first part of the season where it came down to Kyle Busch and Ross Chastain. I want to say Martinsville, it was like that, where it was Kyle Busch, Ross Chastain, and Ben Rhodes that were the top three all day long. Now, what a race that was. So yeah, hashtag Melon Man Challenge is underway. We'll see how far he can get with that. But it was an exciting race. Cautions, and more cautions. It seemed like they would go too wide into the corner, and the truck on the inside would get loose and slide up and spin out. We had a lot of great saves. Tyler Ankrum in the 17 is one of the ones that comes to mind, where he spun down pit road, didn't hit a thing. Jordan Anderson had a crazy save as well. You saw Sturt Friesen robbed again that way, because he spun out on the inside there and crashed. The other KBM drivers, their woes continue, because Todd Gilliland crashed that way. KBM, and part of the reason why Kyle Busch brought Greg Biffle in, because Kyle Busch has been very vocal over the past couple of weeks that he is not happy with the state of Kyle Busch Motorsports right now, and rightfully so. In my opinion, there's a lot of talk about it's unfair to criticize, or it's unfair to compare Todd Gilliland and Harrison Burton to Kyle Busch. And I definitely don't think that's fair. But at the same time, it is fair to compare Todd Gilliland and Harrison Burton to William Byron, Eric Jones, Bubba Wallace, Noah Gragson. A lot of these guys who have come up through the Kyle Busch Motorsports stable and are now in top tier Cup Xfinity Series rides and winning all the time. That's a fair criticism. Because you've got the same experience level in the same equipment. What can you do? I'm really shocked that Todd Gilliland has not won yet. I thought he would have by now. I think he's got the talent. He just needs to figure out how to close out the deal. And Kyle Busch has basically been saying, look, if you can't win in a KBM truck, you might as well go home, because this is the best stuff out there. Then there's really no excuse for not winning, especially when going to the other criticism, when you put Kyle Busch in one of those trucks and, he runs away with it by almost 10 seconds, and then Todd Gilliland, Harrison Burton, those guys are really struggling week in, week out. It is surprising. It's very surprising. So the KBM woes continue for one of the three trucks. Craziness all throughout the race. You just had it was very, very exciting. Then you had the Greg Biffle just came out of nowhere. in some aspects where they played the strategy and he was able to get to the lead. He had a late caution at the end there where it was Austin Hill in the 16, Ross Chastain in the 38, a couple of other guys who stayed out longer than everybody else, just trying to bank on a caution, and it didn't work. And Greg Biffle cycled through to the lead on a bit of a fuel mileage race. I love fuel mileage races because it's very exciting to see. It keeps you on the edge of your seat to say, does he have enough? Is he going to make it? Is Biffle going to be able to hold off Matt Crafton, who it's been a long time since he's won? So it was exciting to say the least, and the Biff managed to pull it out there at the end. Again, first time in a truck since 2004. First time in NASCAR of any kind since 2016, and he goes out there and wins, and takes home the big cash prize for the Triple Truck Challenge. It is a shame that NASCAR decided to pull the rug out from under him and say you're not eligible for Iowa. That was stupid, in my opinion, and he should be able to be eligible for that. Granted, I know Kyle Busch has said it's going to be hard for him to have a fifth truck ready. But yeah, so that's a shame. But he might be able to come back for Gateway and have a shot at that one as well. But just really, really exciting racing. Just great race all around. Let's go over the finishing order. Greg Biffle wins. Matt Crafton second. Great run. He's unfortunately kind of been the other guy at ThorSport for a while now. Ben Rhodes is winning, Grant Enfinger's winning, Johnny Sauter's winning, and Crafton just hasn't really been there recently. So it's really good to see him having such a great run. Tyler Ankrum, third. Great run for DGR Crosley. Grant Enfinger, fourth. Harrison Burton, fifth. Sheldon Creed, sixth. Brennan Poole, seventh. Great run for him after that almost underdog story at Charlotte. He almost got back to Kyle Busch and was able to beat him. So it's really cool to see that 30 truck running so well. It's an underdog team. He is a driver who has been in top tier equipment before. He used to drive for Chip Ganassi in the Xfinity Series. I believe he was the first DC Solar driver. When all that started to go down with DC Solar, he lost his ride, and that was a shame. And he had been out of the car for a while. I think he ran a couple of ARCA races, possibly for Venturini Motorsports, but just was never in a good quality ride ever again until this year. And he's really got that 30 truck for On Point Motorsports running pretty well, and he's been impressive to watch. Austin Hill, 8th. The guy who finished 9th is somebody that I want to shout out. Corey Roper in the 04. He ran in the top 10 all night long. And that is a barely sponsored underdog team. He doesn't run every race, but he's really got that 04 truck running well. And I'm really impressed with how he's been performing. 10th, Ross Chastain, yet another top 10. I don't know how he's managed to keep this streak up of top 10 every single week. Some other highlights: Brett Moffitt 11th, Anthony Alfredo 12th, Johnny Sauter 13th, Josh Rayom 14th. Going forward, Scott Stenzel 16th, Norm Benning 17th. Great run for him. Granted, a lot of guys crashed out, but Stuart Friesen back in 20th after a crash. Ben Rhodes 21st after an issue. Natalie Decker 22nd. Anthony Marakovich in the Nemechek truck 26th. Todd Gilliland ended up 27th. Angela Ruck 29th. Kyle Benjamin 31st. Gustine 32nd. This is just some of the other highlights. Great racing, great action. What a race, and the Biff is back. So really cool there. Moving on to the Xfinity race over in Michigan. That was also a pretty good race. One of the big stories going into the race, it was going to be the Xfinity Series debut of ARCA driver Joe Graff Jr., who I've mentioned before on this show because a few weeks ago in the ARCA race at Toledo, he has been very sharply criticized for intentionally wrecking Hailie Deegan in her series debut. He's getting a few races for Richard Childress Racing in the 21 this year in the Xfinity Series, and he didn't qualify. it was really interesting. He was not the guy that I was expecting to be the DNQ for the race. He went on Twitter and basically said he tried to play it safe and it cost him. But it's just interesting that there was all this hype about his series debut and he didn't qualify. The race itself, the outside line really seemed to prevail on the restarts, especially Paul Menard, who was driving the 12 for Penske, just seemed to be so good on the restarts, and he would pull away and it would be really hard to pass him. I forget exactly how he did get past, but what became very clear as this race continued on was the continued dominance of the big three: Cole Custer, Tyler Reddick, and Christopher Bell. Tyler Reddick ended up winning this race, his third win of the year, which means he's already won more times now already this year as he did all of last year when he won the championship. So the big three are dominant right now. It's like last year in the Cup Series all over again. You got these big three that are winning every single race. And it ended up, again, being a pit strategy, fuel mileage kind of a race. Where you were wondering if Reddick had enough fuel to make it. There were a few guys ahead of him that ended up running out of gas, had to fall back, and you're wondering if there's any possible way that Tyler Reddick can actually hold off and make this thing happen. You saw guys like Michael Annett, Noah Gragson, closing, and then those last couple of laps, Reddick was able to pull away again and hold them all off, save just enough fuel to kick it into high gear at the end and pull it off. Again, his third win of the year. Noah Gragson really impressed me those last couple of laps. I'm not a huge fan of Noah Gragson. I don't really know why. Maybe it's just I don't know exactly what it is, but he really impressed me those last couple of laps. Just some of the moves that he was able to make to gain positions on the last couple of laps to try to have one more shot at Tyler Reddick. He ended up finishing second in this thing, so that was very very cool, very impressive to see. Let's run through the finishing order. The top 10 here is Tyler Reddick, Noah Gragson second, Michael Annett third, great run for him. Paul Menard fourth, Justin Allgaier fifth, Brandon Jones sixth, great run for him. Chase Briscoe seventh, another great run for Stewart-Haas Racing. Chase Briscoe, I think, is going to win this year for sure. John Hunter Nemechek eighth, Jeb Burton ninth, Justin Hailie 10th, Austin Cindric 11th. Here's some of the other highlights: Cole Custer 12th, Christopher Bell 13th, Ross Chastain 14th, Greg Alding 16th, Tommy Joe Martins 18th, pretty good run. Josh Bilicki 21st, Matt Mills 24th, Garrett Smithley 27th, Landon Castle 32nd. He has been racing Morgan Shepherd's 89 the past couple of weeks, and I mean he qualifies that thing outstanding, like in or near the top 10. And I think they're having to start in park. So if Landon Castle can run a full race in that 89 car, it's going to be really interesting to see what he could be able to do. And then Riley Herbst in the Joe Gibbs Racing 18 ended up crashing early and finishing 37th. So yeah, that was the Xfinity race. Great race all around. Tyler Reddick pulls it out. Moving on to one of the biggest stories of the weekend, I think, the K&N Pro Series West race in Colorado. I didn't get to see the race. I'm hoping to catch the NBC replay in a couple of days. Hailie Deegan, second win of the year, third of her career, but it did not come without controversy. And she's been criticized and accused of dumping her teammate Derek Kraus on the last lap. That's not what I saw, and I'm going to walk you through what she's being accused of and what I saw when I watched the replay. And this is not me speaking. I am a huge Hailie Deegan fan, but I'm going to try to be as objective as I possibly can here. She had almost dominated the race. I think she led the most laps all night. and she was leading until a late caution came out for her teammate Brittany Zamora spinning, and then on that overtime restart, her teammate Derek Kraus was right behind her, and I'm sure she was expecting to get a push and get clear of whoever was in second. I think it might have been Jagger Jones. And obviously, you're expecting your teammates to help you, especially if they're right behind you on a restart. Well, that ain't what happened. Kraus basically forced it 3 wide, kind of rammed her up the track. I don't think that was necessarily intentional, but it was a very aggressive move. And Hailie, there's a lot of people starting to call her the new Intimidator, because she's made it very clear, if it comes down to the end of the race, she's not afraid to move you. You know, she won't wreck you, but she will certainly move you. And it was interesting. So Kraus shoves her 3 wide. He gets away with the lead. She starts tracking him down, and basically she gets clear to second, and she's been accused of basically going to the inside and ramming Derek Kraus out of the way. But again, that is not really what I saw. And what I saw is, you watch that last corner, she's almost in the dirt. She is off the track. She is as low as she possibly can be. And there are a lot of drivers that'll take more of a diamond shape through the corners. And I think that's what Kraus was trying to do, where he runs up by the wall on the straights, and then through the corners, he cuts down to the bottom and tries to run the white line. What it looks like to me is, I don't know if he was told that she was on his inside. And so he tries to cut down to make his typical diamond shape into the corner, and she's there. Because it looks like she's as low as she can possibly be, and he comes down on her and wrecks himself, basically. So that's what I saw. And I'm not gonna criticize anybody for it. It's just a racing deal. And at the end of the day, that 19 car won, and the 16 did not. And that's really what it comes down to. So if I can find the results here, I'll run through the finishing order. Here we go. There were only 14 cars in the entire race, but I've heard it was an outstanding race. Hailie Deegan wins, Cody Vanderwall in 43 second, Todd Souza third, Brittany Zamora fourth, Matt Levin fifth, John Woods 6th, Jagger Jones 7th, Derek Kraus ended up 8th, Trevor Huddleston 9th, Takuma Koga 10th, Ron J 11th, Taylor Canfield 12th, Bobby Hills Jr. 13th, and Travis Milburn 14th. Great race all around. And again, controversial finish, but I'm not gonna put the blame on either Derek Kraus or Hailie Deegan. It's a racing deal. It's a last lap. Teammates go out the window. You do what you got to do. And both drivers, I think, tried to do whatever they could to try to win. And that's really what it comes down to at the end. So, yeah, that was the K&N race. And then finally, the Cup race back at Michigan. There was a lot of interesting speculation going on before this race. What I will say is, we needed a race like this that had some level of excitement after last week at Pocono. If you watched this show, you remember I went on a pretty big rant last week about how awful the racing was at Pocono. It was probably the most boring, most crappy race I've ever seen. And we needed a good race this week, and we got a lot of good races. But the Cup racing was, it was going to be interesting to see how the aero package played out at this 2-mile track. I saw lots of passing, but at the same time, especially up front, a lot of single file. You did have some different players up front than you typically do see on a week-to-week basis, but you just could not pass the leader. You just couldn't do it. That 22 led basically the entire race right up until the end. It was like a lot of guys could get a run, and nobody could pass him. Logano just did a great job. A lot of pit strategy going on. Stage 3, you had a lot of crazy lead battles, which was good. You finally saw people be able to make some moves on the leader. Nobody could really clear him, but there was one move that I remember that it was like Kyle Larson flew by Kevin Harvick for the lead, and then Logano came out of nowhere and shoved them both up the track, and just craziness. I was very surprised at how non-existent Kyle Busch was this whole race right up until the end. He just was not there, and then he comes out of nowhere at the end and ends up finishing in the top 5. Kurt Busch, his brother, is continuing to impress in that number 1 car for Chip Ganassi Racing. He was right in the mix of everything all day long. He actually got into the wall a couple of times early and managed to just about win this thing. So it was close. What a move! He almost timed it perfectly, and tried to move to the bottom around the 22, coming to the line, and just didn't time it right. But it was very close. So yeah, we needed a race with that much excitement after last week at Pocono, which was just not a good race at all. And this one is debatable just because, again, you could not pass the leader, but you did have some pretty good excitement. It was hard, but not impossible to pass. It was a pretty good race overall. Going through the finishing order, Joey Logano wins, Kurt Busch 2nd, Martin Truex Jr. 3rd, Daniel Suarez 4th, great run, Kyle Busch 5th, Brad Keselowski 6th, Kevin Harvick 7th, Ryan Newman 8th. Pretty good run for the 6, but the 6 has had pretty good finishes here in the past at Michigan. I remember a couple of years ago, Trevor Bayne basically won this race for Kyle Larson in 2017, where basically I think Trevor was running 3rd on the restart and just blasted Larson into the corner. Larson would not have won the race if it weren't for Trevor Bayne's push there, and that definitely did not get the publicity that it deserved, because Trevor Bayne is not widely considered to be a great driver, which is a shame. Ryan Blaney 9th, Alex Bowman finished 10th. He was probably the best Hendrick car all day long. Other highlights: Denny Hamlin 11th, Daniel Hemrick 12th. That 8 car is really starting to run a lot better lately, which is good to see. Paul Menard 13th, Kyle Larson 14th, Jimmy Johnson 15th, William Byron 18th, Chase Elliott 20th, Ryan Preece 25th, Austin Dillon 26th after a crash, Bubba Wallace 28th, David Reagan 34th, Eric Jones 31st actually, after some issues late in the race, Clinton Boyer 35th after crashing. So there was definitely some action, some good passing, some excitement. It wasn't the most exciting race we've ever seen, and it wasn't the worst race we've ever seen. So that's basically all I've got to say about Michigan. For the Cup Series this week, it's an off weekend for Father's Day weekend. The Xfinity Series and Truck Series are both in Iowa this weekend, which is all. I wish the Cup Series would race at Iowa. I love that short track. You always get great racing. You always get underdogs up front when you go there. So it's gonna be pretty cool. Ross Chastain is going to have a great chance to win a truck race this weekend. Iowa is a place where he has always run well. He's got a couple of Xfinity top 5s there, so expecting great things out of him. Really looking forward to the racing this coming weekend at Iowa. So thank you guys for watching. This has been the Fifth Turn, and I will see you guys next week to recap Iowa. See you later. Take care.